this is Joe again with another review. And to continue with my WrestleMania review series, I'm going to be discussing WrestleMania 9, which happened in 1993 in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And this is really because we have a WrestleMania 7 that wasn't held in the LA Coliseum. It would have been the first outdoor venue for WrestleMania, but because we're not going to rehash that review, this one in WrestleMania 9 was the first time that WrestleMania was held in an outdoor venue, and it's a good thing to pick Las Vegas for it because it was warm enough at that time of the year. One of the few locations in the United States that's warm enough to hold a WrestleMania without having to worry about the fans or the wrestlers who was actually half dressed, really, and 40 or 50 degree weather like they had a couple of years ago in the Meadowlands. So this was really the first outdoor arena. And I know that the Off the Ropes show guy, the Shag Daddy, as he calls himself, called this WrestleMania the worst WrestleMania ever, and that's just because of the Undertaker Giant Gonzalez match, which you can understand his point, because it was a pretty lousy match. It was a gimmick match, really. But other than that, and also the way that the show finished, which was also one of the worst finishes in WrestleMania. I think WrestleMania 8 was worse as a finish than WrestleMania 9 was. But both of them were pretty damn close about having a lousy finish. Well, like I said, this one, which I did bring up on my WrestleMania 8 review. WrestleMania 8 was the last WrestleMania that the real voice of WrestleMania, Gorilla Monsoon, will announce. Will work as an announcer of WrestleMania 8. Which is a shame, because actually wrestling fans from my generation grew up with Jesse Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon as the announcers for WrestleMania, because they were together for like the first 6 WrestleManias together, and I think that's maybe the longest. I might be wrong, but I think that was the longest tenured matchup. I mean, you could say Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, maybe, but for a longer amount of years of announcing WrestleMania. But to me, it always would be Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura announcing WrestleMania. For me, it's those two guys. So this year, WrestleMania 9 was the first time they got Jim Ross announcing WrestleMania. Because WWF just signed Jim Ross for he just ended his tenure in WCW, and WCW snatched him up. The WWF signed him up right away, and his first match, for a show he did as an announcer, was WrestleMania 9. And like I said earlier, this was in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, so everybody and the grandmother was dressed up in a stupid toga, except for Randy Savage. Randy Savage was also doing the announcing for this one, and he was not in a toga, but Bobby Heenan was in a toga. As a matter of fact, he came in on a camel backwards, running backwards. Jim Ross in a toga. You had Howard Finkel, who of course is a ring announcer. He was in a toga. You even had Gorilla Monsoon interviewing people in the back, wearing a toga. We did have Gorilla Monsoon there, but he was not an announcer. He was in the back, interviewing people, along with Mean Gene. And Mean Gene was wearing a toga. It would have been funnier, or even worse, if he had the wrestlers in togas. But you did have a very good opening match. Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka, and that was a pretty good match to open up WrestleMania 9. And that went for about like 15-20 minutes. You had I think it was where Shawn Michaels dumps the station of Sherry for Shawn. And they had the two of them had a fight. I think later on down the line, I think they had a series of matches. I think down the line, Sensation Sharing and Lou Vachon did. But then you did have a tag team match, championship match, which is unique. Because it was the first time that I can remember that you had this type of match. You had Ted DiBiase winning his only legitimate championship. I'm not talking about the belt that he had a couple years earlier over the $1 million belt. And I'm talking about that because he made that title himself and really put that title on the line. But he had the tag team belts with the former tag team champ Mike Rotunda, who was doing the iOS persona at that time. They had they called themselves Money Inc. And they were in fact a pretty good damn tag team. And I think it was pretty funny that WrestleMania 1, Mike Rotunda was a tag team champ with Mike Rotunda, and now 8 years later, in WrestleMania 9, you had, or 8 years later, at WrestleMania 9, you had him together again as a tag team champ, which was pretty good, but at least this time he didn't lose. They wrestled Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. At that time, and believe it or not, this was, you can understand wrestlers themselves do this. I mean, in terms of turn from heel to babyface, or from babyface to heel, make a heel turn, or a face turn. In this particular case, it was a manager who are usually heels in the wrestling universe, no matter which one is WCW, WWF, they're always a heel. He's interfering in matches and so forth. And this time you had a manager go from heel to babyface, and that was Jimmy Hart. Of all people, Jimmy Hart. Because up until that time, I think it was like during the summer of 1992. I think the reason why Brutus Beefcake was not in WrestleMania 8. Because I think it was vacationing out of Florida, I think it was, and he had a parasailing accident and it busted up his whole face. He didn't have like metal plates in there, and it took him a long time to recover. And for a long time, the doctors didn't allow him to wrestle because one good shot in the face, as light as the hits were to the face, in wrestling, they don't handle with a closed fist, they're more like an open fist, like I have my fist now. Most fists are like this is a closed fist, and it's a little bit more open like this, so you won't feel the effects on that much. But Briefcase, the doctor told him, hey, don't wrestle anymore. So he had so they had this particular bet. They already started the Monday Night War show already at that time, and Jimmy Hart was the manager of Money Inc. And it was also the first time that Ted DiBiase actually had a manager. It's true, he had Virgil's bodyguard, but for years. But this was the first time he actually had a legit manager. And they had a bet on Raw where Bruce Beefcake was trying to make a comeback and trying to get a license again to wrestle. And DiBiase and iOS smashed his face in, and Jimmy Hart was pleading with them, don't do it, don't hit him, you're going to destroy his whole face. And of course, Jimmy Hart got mad, and he refuses to manage Money Inc. anymore. So now he decided to become the manager of Jimmy Hart and Bruce Beefcake and Hulk Hogan, which was pretty funny with Bruce Beefcake, because for a few years ago, during WrestleMania, shortly after WrestleMania 4, Bruce Beefcake used to give haircuts to Jimmy Hart. It was the Bruce Beefcake character. So that was pretty ironic that 5 years later, Jimmy Hart was Bruce Beefcake's manager. So they had a tag team match, and of course I think Hogan and Beefcake was disqualified, or I think Money Inc. was disqualified, and the title, of course, doesn't change hands on that. Of course, the other match that a lot of people took note of was, of course, the main event, which was like a lousy finish on it. But before that, you had the god-awful match with The Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez. Giant Gonzalez was typed as an 8-foot guy fighting The Undertaker, and The Undertaker comes out. That's one of the, I think, like the first WrestleMania when it came out with trying to spook everybody, when The Undertaker was trying to scare everybody, comes out with a little crow or a raven on a bird stand or something, coming out holding this bird stand out on its way to the ring. And of course, it didn't take very long, and the Undertaker beat him. Of course, it was in the third year of the third win in his streak finally ended last year. And because of matches like the Undertaker had in his early WrestleMania matches, I don't think that his streak should have been as praised as it should, because he keeps getting these lousy opponents. Because the first 2 years he had Jimmy Snuka in WrestleMania 7 and was past his prime. WrestleMania 8 he had Jake the Snake Roberts, who I felt at that point in time, even though he was still a good worker in the ring and a good guy he was very good on the mic, very good in the ring, but he was also getting past his prime. He was leaving after the WrestleMania 8 match. So he had two guys past his prime, past their prime as wrestlers. And then you had Giant Gonzalez, and then a couple years later, he wrestled King Kong Bundy. So how can you have praise the streak when you have about 4 matches, when at least the first 4 of the first 5 matches were crap? Wasn't as a best opponent or a match for a championship or something. Because especially of the hype that he had by WrestleMania 7, he wasn't wrestling for a championship. Then of course you had the bit at the end of the main event, which was the Yokozuna versus Bret Hart. Bret Hart was a champion, and in 1993 was the first year we had in the 93 Royal Rumble, which the Rumble winner would have the main event in the next WrestleMania. Too much thing, and he had too much of hype for it then. Not like what it is now, we only have maybe like a month of hype or 6 weeks of hype. That's why I like the early years better than what it is now, because now you have, which we want to get to, probably touch on another video later on how lousy WrestleMania has gone. But this year was the first year when the Rumble winner got the main event in WrestleMania. Because even though technically the WrestleMania 91 happened that way, Hogan won the Royal Rumble in 1991, and he fought Sergeant Slaughter for the championship, and he won. And in 92, whoever won the Royal Rumble in 1992 won the Undisputed Championship, which I'm going to kick out every so often, every few years, you have a guy win the Undisputed Championship. They did that in WrestleMania 4, of course, for the first time in WrestleMania 4. They did it in the 92 Rumble, and then they did a few years later with Chris Jericho when they merged, when Vince McMahon bought WCW, and they had the 2 championships. The WCW champ, which was called the World Heavyweight Champ, and the WWE champ, or the WWF champ, and that was still called the World Wrestling Federation champ. Jericho won, I think, the WWF championship already, and he fought the WCW champ, and of course they merged the 2 belts as the Undisputed champ. A few years later. Anyway, I don't get off on a tangent, but this was the first time that you had the Rumble winner facing the champ in WrestleMania 9. And the champ at that time was Bret the Hitman Hart. And this was a pretty damn good match. And I think this is the first and only time, no, it's actually the first time that Mr. Fuji, who was one of the last managers left, because Bobby Heenan wasn't, I think at that point Bobby Heenan was not managing anybody anymore. He was a full-time announcer. He wasn't announcing for a few years already, but he wasn't managing anybody. You still had Jimmy Hart managing people, You had Harvey Whippleman, who came in to wrestle people. You had Sleck for a while. He left to be a preacher or minister full time. So you only had only a couple of guys still managing them. And Mr. Fuji managed Yokozuna. And I thought it was a pretty good idea to have the only Asian or supposedly Japanese guy managing Yokozuna, but actually Yokozuna was actually from Hawaii, not from Japan. No side note. And they had a pretty good main event between Bret Hart and Yokozuna. And you think that well, you knew that Yokozuna was most likely going to win because of his size and his girth. His fat is about like maybe 3 times the size of volume, or 5 times the size that I am. I mean, I'm pretty fat. He makes me look skinny in comparison. Because that's how big Yokozuna was. So I kind of figured that Yokozuna was going to win anyway. But he won by, I think it was either Fuji through the salt in his face, or I think it was like a photographer with his flash camera, flash powder in Bret Hart's eyes, and he fell over. And of course, Yokozuna, all he had to do was sit on him, and that's how I mentioned. And Hogan comes down to the ring and says, "Hey, he cheated. Yokozuna cheated. He shouldn't have won like that. It was interfered with." And Mr. Fuji, he didn't give a shit. And Fuji goes, "See now, Yokozuna's even better than you now. He's going to be a champ longer than you. He's going to be the greatest champ in the history of the WWF and all this stuff." And then Fuji has to open up his big mouth and says, "I'm challenging you right now for a match." And Bret Hart is like this, so trying to grab the soul out of his eyes. Says, "Go on, go. Now, instead of having a celebration in the ring for Yokozuna as the new champ, he had to like rub in. Hogan had to come down and like I said, Mr. Fuji rubbed in. So he rubbed it in and beat him in like 50 seconds. So that's my. So it was like the ending of a WrestleMania. So that's my review of WrestleMania 9. I'm only going to do maybe a couple more of these in this game. WrestleMania is, in my opinion, getting worse and worse and worse. So let me review WrestleMania 9. Please click on the video, please rate it. So please subscribe to my channel. Forward this video onto your Facebook pages, and you can also check out some of my other WrestleMania review videos, as well as some of my older videos on my YouTube channel, but on realityc.com. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.